Olá pessoal, saudações! Chegamos então ao 10º e último vídeo da nossa série Arquitetura do Caos, na qual a gente construiu reflexões sobre o fenômeno das guerras híbridas. Na sequência dos vídeos, nós seguimos uma linha no tempo que nos permitiu olhar para essa nova estratégia de tomada de poder por procuração sob uma perspectiva genealógica. Vimos juntos o protótipo de uma guerra híbrida aplicada pelos Estados Unidos da América em 1954, na derrubada do governo do Jacob Arbenz na Guatemala, uma ação que contou com a ajuda fundamental do mago da comunicação em massa, Edward Bernays, e o seu arsenal de instrumentos de mídia que mostrou ao mundo como aplicar um golpe de Estado usando gabinete de desinformação, boatos e infiltração de agentes em prol da operação. O Bernays ele é citado pelo Andrew Korybko no seu livro Guerras Híbridas, das Revoluções Coloridas aos Golpes, como um dos grandes idealizadores dessa espécie de abordagem indireta sobre lideranças e governos de nações estrangeiras. Com o advento das modernas tecnologias, em especial as digitais e a internet, os estrategistas militares aperfeiçoaram os métodos usados nesse tipo de ação de influenciação e tomada de poder. Claro, na linha de frente desse trabalho, eles passaram a contar com analistas de dados, de sistemas, psicólogos e psicólogas especializados em trabalhos de quantificação, de classificação, de segmentação psicográfica que antes era usada para o mercado de consumidores e que passou a compor o arsenal dessas novas armas de guerra usando informação. Bom, eu escolhi para encerrar a nossa série um vídeo depoimento do autor do livro Guerras Híbridas, das Revoluções Coloridas ao Golpe, o Andrew Korybko, que foi um dos pioneiros na área de humanas no estudo sobre guerras híbridas. É nesse livro dele que eu ancorei uma boa parte da iniciação da minha pesquisa sobre o tema. Então é isso, pessoal. Valeu. Cuidem-se. Saúde.
Hi everyone. Thank you for coming to the event. I appreciate everyone's interest in my work and truly believe that it's relevant for everyone in Brazil. Your country was victimized by American hybrid war after the U.S.'s National Security Agency was responsible for the Operation Car Wash rolling regime change operation that manipulated domestic, political, and legal processes in order to reverse the pink tide, and therefore enable the U.S. to capture strategic control of your country. My book was written before the rise of Bolsonaro, but it nevertheless explains some of the manipulative tactics that were relied upon to propel him into power. Pre-existing identity conflicts within your country, principally its historic divisions between the left and right wings, were masterfully exploited to this end, with the global perception management campaign entering into full swing in order to sway people's views against the previous government. This infowar was driven by the details that were publicized as part of Operation Car Wash and intended to justify a sweeping regime change that discredited Brazil's main political forces and therefore paved the way for a so-called dark horse candidate to emerge. The population had to first be preconditioned into accepting this profound change, however, which is why the process took several years to play out. During that time, the atmosphere was very tense and politicized, with anti-government protests serving to make it seem like the vast majority of the population was behind this purge. It's true that anti-corruption crusades generally have a lot of support anywhere in the world, but it's important not to lose sight of the fact that this one was started by a foreign power, actively meddling in domestic affairs with the unstated intent of overthrowing the government and returning Brazil to its historic sphere of influence. It also shouldn't be forgotten that Operation Car Wash began under Obama, with Trump merely continuing it. Some people might find it difficult to understand why a Republican president continued one of the policies of his Democratic predecessor, despite regularly criticizing his legacy, but this just proves that the American deep state, or permanent military, intelligence, and diplomatic bureaucracies, sometimes maintain consistency across administrations, and oftentimes exercise much more influence than the U.S. leaders themselves, since they're the ones specializing on whatever the specific issue may be. Sometimes, as with the case of the Iranian nuclear deal, a president can pivot policy in a completely new direction. But other times, he passively allows the deep state to continue with their plans without interfering, as was the case with Brazil. Whether led by a Democrat or Republican, the U.S. needs Brazil as part of its Fortress America strategy. That vision is simple enough to understand, and it's that the U.S. wants to restore its influence over the entire Western Hemisphere in order to both have a reserve of natural and human resources for countering China in the new Cold War, and also to possibly retreat to, in the worst-case scenario, of losing a lot of its influence in the Eastern Hemisphere throughout the course of this global competition. Waging hybrid war against Brazil and purging its top political leaders from power was meant to facilitate Bolsonaro's emergence as the dark horse who would help fulfill this strategy more than anyone else realistically could. That said, just as hybrid war led to his rise, it could also lead to his downfall, as many of these same informational and organizational tactics, specifically only the peaceful ones, could be used against his government by grassroots civil society activists to weaken it, albeit doing so on their own initiative and without any foreign backing, of course. It's for these reasons why my book is relevant for Brazilians. It should put the political events of the past few years into a larger context and help explain how and why the rolling regime change process succeeded. My work provides a new prism through which one can better understand everything, both retroactively and proactively, providing a vision of the future where responsible informational and organizational tactics can help affect real political change in the future. It's my belief that while some of the consequences of Operation Car Wash might be irreversible, others aren't, namely the overall direction of Brazil turning into a neoliberal vassal of the U.S. It's therefore of the utmost importance to understand how your country got to this point, since one can then work on reverse engineering some of the dynamics through responsible and realistic means. Thank you.
O vídeo final, com o depoimento do cientista político, autor de Guerras Híbridas, das Revoluções Coloridas aos Golpes, Andrew Korybko, foi transmitido como uma live motivada pelo lançamento desse livro em língua portuguesa no ano de 2019 na Escola de Arquitetura da Universidade Federal de Minas Gerais. Esse lançamento foi uma ação da editora Expressão Popular que contou com a parceria entre o Grupo de Pesquisa Indisciplinar, o jornal Brasil de Fato e diversos sindicatos. Os créditos da transcrição, da tradução e das legendas da fala de Andrew Korybko são de Arthur Reis e Danilo Caporalli. O livro do Korybko é indicado para todos que se interessam em buscar compreender um pouco mais sobre os componentes e as variáveis do fenômeno das guerras híbridas.